Hi guys, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Riddim, and this is
Ainsley Carry.
awesome. Okay, so the goal of this podcast is sort of for you guys to join us within our conversation. Normally, whenever we record, we're going to have like food ready for us to eat, but also we're going to invite you guys as well to join us. And so today, hopefully, if it gets delivered on time, we're going to be having food from Riddim Spice. And we invite you guys, if you're in Vancouver, go order from Riddim Spice, support a local business, but also if you're not, if you're somewhere else around the world, it's Caribbean food, Jamaican, and so shout out to my people from Jamaica watching this, and yeah, so you can just order from somewhere near you and eat that as you listen in, and also have some thoughts of your own. But yeah, Ainsley, to get us started, we're actually having a few discussions before we started rolling. But would you like to introduce yourself, sort of what you do at the university and so on?
First, let me say thank you for this opportunity to have this conversation. I think this is always a pleasure to mix it up with students, to talk about what's going on in the world, what matters to you, what matters to us, and how it impacts us all. So again, my name is Ainsley Carry, and I serve as the Vice President for Students at the University of British Columbia. I was born in New York, grew up in South Florida. My parents are from the West Indies, from Trinidad and Tobago. I've worked in the U.S. for most of the time prior to coming to the University of British Columbia in 2019. And I arrived here a year before the pandemic and have had the pleasure of serving as the Vice President for Students here. I did my undergraduate education at the University of Florida, earned a bachelor's, master's, and doctorate there, and then worked throughout the U.S. before coming north in 2019.
Awesome. Okay. So one of the things we're actually talking about beforehand was it was the Jumpstart orientation day. And normally at UBC, how it works is every year we have Jumpstart orientation leaders, we have just orientation leaders in general, and then we all meet in this beautiful place, the gym, or War Memorial Gym. And it's like to celebrate like you're welcome to UBC as a freshman. And so I remember when I was in my first year, and then I came, and I was just really excited, stargaze, looking around campus, you see all these students, all these different colors, you're mingling with the engineers, people from arts, from forestry, from kin, all these different programs. And then we get to the gym, and so we had a little fun pep talk, pep rally, and then Ainsley came on, and this, from a black man to a black man, seeing the vibes, the aura, as he walked across the stage, and he's like, I can't hear you. We got the music going. I was like, okay, like this is awesome, right? But from that, one of the things I mentioned before that this really impacted me was when you shared your story of what it meant for you to be going away to university, right? And how one of the things that you just saw was like the way it impacted your family as well. And then you talked about your uncle, like he was giving you that, and just like things like that. And I think that was just so impactful. You mentioned going to class as well. This year, I can tell you, I haven't missed a single class that wasn't excused.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just hearing that, I think that was impactful. And what's one story like similar to that, or maybe even completely different, that you sort of carry with you in your life that has impacted some of the way that you do things, or yeah.
So, as you mentioned, thank you for bringing up Jumpstart and Imagine Day. It's an important experience for brand new students to UBC. We filled Doug Mitchell Arena with 7,000 new students coming from more than 100 different countries, all first-year students, and that's the first time that the entire first-year class is together in one area. And that won't happen again, right? Because the first-year class is 7,000 students. The next time the class comes together is at graduation. And that's usually 400 at a time, 500 at a time in different graduation ceremonies 4 years later. So we create a moment that won't exist again. And it's a very special moment. One of the things that I share in my speech to the incoming students is I take a minute to reflect on my experience as a student because I remember the anxiety, the stress, the concerns of being 18, landing at a university. You don't know what the next 4 or 5 years of your life holds. But one thing that you know for sure is that all of your support systems are gone, right? Your parents are gone, your siblings are gone, your uncles, aunts, everything that lived in your house around you is gone. They're back on the road, heading back home. You're in a residence hall. You have this brand new person as your roommate. You're eating in this new place. You're sleeping in a new bed. You have new classes. You have a whole new schedule. So there's no moment in our life that we face such a dramatic transition. Typically, we get to slowly move into transitions in life, but your first week of your first year at a university is a dramatic transition. So my message to students is you're going to be okay. Like, we've done this, right? It's going to be tough at the beginning, but you're going to be okay. So while you think about where you are, your presence, and your engagement in space, I want you to be mindful of the people who help you get here, right? So that's the main point. While we are absorbed with our own stress and anxiety, know that the people who helped you get here, they're not gone. They're not physically in your residence hall with you, but they're a phone call away, a text message away. So stay in touch with them. Call them, write them, stay engaged. And my most important message is to say thank you to them, right? Because you've stepped away from home. You are anxious. You're focused on yourself. And this is a moment to say, you know what, Mom, thank you. You know what, Dad, thank you. Even your siblings, thank you for getting me to this point. Now I'm going to make you proud. So my message to the first year class is always about turning back and remembering those people who helped you get here. Because I remember not being mindful of that in my own experience.
Awesome, yeah. And again, it ties in. So the theme of this talk, this conversation today is Black History Month because we are in February, and that's a bit of what we're talking about. But you mentioned that because before in the previous conversation we were just having about who helped you get here, right? And you mentioned like people who are vying, like praying for your existence before you're even at that university. And one of the things I always love to talk about is I applied to 2 universities in Canada, U of T and UBC. And the reason I decided ultimately on UBC, I was telling my friends from back home when they came over after graduation, was I said, I feel like it can have a lot more impact as a Black student at UBC. At U of T, you're downtown Toronto. You have a ton of people who look like you have that experience, you have that community. But just seeing the way, like, my impact, I've never considered myself a leader, right? I've just always followed things I was curious in or chased things that I genuinely enjoyed. And that's turned into, oh, can you do this? And can you do this? And when you say yes to a lot of things, eventually, like, you're ushered into that role. And I remember the impact of, I think we had a conference. It was Beyond something youth or if not us, then who? Beyond the Horizon. Okay, it was Beyond the Horizon Youth Summit. I think it was grade 10 or 10, right after the pandemic. And one of the things we just talked about was how do we get back? It was a conversation for other students and facilitating that, and then just hearing afterwards how much that impact meant to other students. And so, yeah, that's sort of something I've been chasing. And then coming here where I said, okay, like, I'm the one who's making this choice. I'm the one who's deciding to go here. I'm going to study STEM and so on. And then what you said sort of made me think that, like, even though I think I'm going here, it's like my choice. There have been different things behind that have made it easy for me to be able to come into a space like this. And people who've been, like, rooting for your existence even before you knew, like, they were calling your name. And so I guess I can tie it in with the first question, which is, why is Black History Month important to you? And maybe you want to touch on it too and expand together. But yeah,
you've given me a lot to think about there. So let me try to break down a couple of parts. One, I'll address why is Black History Month important to me. I think Black History Month is a symbol to the rest of the world A time for the world to kind of pay attention to a community and to learn about that community's culture, history, and traditions and absorb that. We also have, Asian History Month and Trans History Month and Women's Awareness Month. So there are several months throughout the year that are all about bringing attention to a community that some people may not think about on a daily basis and take that month to absorb and learn about that culture as we live in a multicultural world, multi-gender world, and help us think about it. But for people of color, whether you're Asian or Indigenous or Black, every day is Black History Month, right? Mm. So I am constantly reminded of my cultural background, sometimes in positive ways, sometimes in negative ways. But I'm constantly learning and reading. So I don't take 30 days out the year to say these 30 days, now I'm going to focus on learning about Black history. I'm always living Black history. My whole experience is a Black history experience.
Yeah.
I am particularly mindful of the past. What I appreciate about our conversation, you are the next generation. You are our ancestors' wildest dreams, right? Like you are talking about the future and thinking about the future and thinking about how you build scholarship today to prepare for a future. I am mindful at this stage of my career of the past. And as I was discussing with you before, a few weeks ago I was involved in a conversation about Sankofa. And Sankofa is about looking into our past to bring those things forward, often realizing that what we're experiencing today was done before. This is not new. But Sankofa also reminds us that before you thought you were making the decision to come to UBC, there was a generation of students and scholars who were here that called forth your presence. Right? So there was a generation of students on this campus in whatever period of time who said it'd be cool to have a Black administrator work at this university. Some past generations said it'd be nice for us to have more Black students on this campus studying STEM, science, technology, engineering, and creating beautiful things for the future. Our presence here is not by accident. Our presence here was called for, and we thought we were responding to admissions applications and job interviews, but we were responding to ancestors who made our presence possible. They had to speak it first. They had to want it first. So it is why I am forever grateful to the trailblazers who did it before us, who were the only ones in a classroom, who were the first ones to live in a residence hall, the first ones to major in a particular degree program and figure it out on their own. And they were saying, boy, it'd be great to have more students of color here. And some of them took action. Yeah. Some of them came to the administration and say, can we have a space for students? Can we have an advisor? Can we have funding to do more programming? That's why we're sitting in the space right now that exists, because a generation of students before you called for this space to happen. So I am constantly mindful during Black History Month or any other period when I walk around this campus that our presence here matters. If a person says it to you or not, be mindful that you were called here and you are answering a call, and you will call forward the next generation who will be here in ways that we have not yet imagined.
Wow. Okay, perfect. I just got a phone call. I'm pretty sure that's the food. And so, okay, awesome. Wait, do you guys want to come introduce? So it's not just me and Ainsley. We want to get everyone who's a part of this so you guys see like just the whole process. But yeah, these are the brilliant minds behind this, the color grading, the camera right now, and everything like that. And so I just want you guys to know like they're also here. But we're quickly going to go grab the food, and then after we can continue this conversation. But I get lucky because I have a few extra seconds to really think about what you said. But let me, okay. Hey guys, welcome back. All right, went back for too long. So we got the food. Food actually arrived a little bit earlier, and we're excited for that. And if you guys remember, it is Caribbean, Jamaican food. So we have jerk chicken, we have peas, we have plantain, we have some, just a lot of good things here. Rice as well. And yeah, no, I'm excited to eat as long as we continue the conversation. So if you guys are watching back home or wherever, order yourself some Riddim and Spice, or just if you're not in Vancouver, then order something similar so you can eat with us as you listen into the conversation. But yeah, so we're just talking about Sankofa, and it's treat from Ghana. Okay, perfect. And so that's beautiful, and it reminds me of I'm actually not sure where it originates from, but it's Ubuntu, and so it's West African, I think, or Eastern African.
I think it's East. It might
East
be
African?
East African.
Okay, East African,
Mm-hmm.
and so it just means like us.
Yeah.
And earlier today, I was just talking about how why I do like the things that I do. I think I'm not sure if it's a result of being black or from living these experiences where you have to think more like, oh, my family, you know, like a lot of people talk about going to university, they don't see their parents for a while and stuff like that. But I think just always calling them and some things just right. You mentioned even coming to university, you're alone, but you're not exactly alone. You have so many supporters, so many people rooting for you from back home, even within the system itself. And so I think that's like a way I like to think of things where it's like us, when we succeed, when we graduate, like this will really play an effect into the community and everything as well. So that's awesome. And I guess the second question, it relates to that, but what's one thing during your undergrad that you did that I mean completely random, like just different, unique, because I do remember you're on the football team, D1 too, University of Florida football team. Oh my goodness! And how is that? Like maybe something you learned from that, or just like that? Yeah, undergrad.
Yeah. Well, now you're in my sweet spot here. This is, I think it's the testimony to much of my life and what I do in regard to working with students. I went to University of Florida to play football, and I emphasize that point because that was my motivation at the time for learning.
Yeah.
I grew up in a single parent household, and I had three siblings. Two of them were older, one of them was younger. And I always imagined that one of our paths out was my ability to play a professional sport. So I went to the school that I thought would give me the best chance to play my professional sport the way I wanted to. I came to the University of Florida. Everybody was bigger, faster, and stronger than me. Right. So I was fortunate to be on the team. But it didn't take me long to realize that my path was probably not going to be the professional athlete. I still recall my second year at the university. There were 17 seniors getting ready to graduate and pursue their NFL careers. And the draft came, and after 4 days of the draft, only two seniors got drafted. And I recall thinking, wow, those guys were bigger, stronger, and faster than me. What are my chances? So it suddenly became real to me, the chances of success as an NFL athlete. So I started really looking around and thinking, that can't be my story. I have to leave here with a degree and find another path. But while I was there, I started to really fall in love with learning things. And I remember thinking about what's the best way to be successful in the classroom.
Yeah.
And I realized that the success I was having on the field is the same formula for success in the classroom. You get up early, you work hard, you study, you practice, you perform, and then you evaluate your performance. And then you get up early, you study, you practice, you perform, and then you evaluate your performance. And then the next day, you get up early, you stay. So the path to success for athletes is similar to the path for success for almost any endeavor in life. If you're willing to create a pattern that you will be disciplined about following.
Yeah.
So I took chemistry, accounting, all the courses that were headaches to me. I got up early, I studied, I practiced, I performed, and I evaluated. I got up early, and I just did the same pattern for everything. And I started to see the results that I had on the field show up in the classroom.
Mm.
That I could take any subject and do that pattern in a disciplined way, and I could be successful. That changed my life because then I fell in love with what else can I learn? And I just started taking classes in a, let me see if I can do this kind of way. And being successful at it gave me so much hope about my intellectual curiosity. What were the things that I would be curious about? And said, let's dive into it. And that's what I did for my last 2 years at university. I, pursued my degree program, but also found things outside my degree program that I was just purely intellectually curious about.
Mm.
And that curiosity has never stopped because I have a pattern that can lead to success. So when you ask me what's the thing from your university experience that you remember, that you bring back, it's number one, intellectual curiosity and finding a pattern to make it successful. So I talk about transferable skills. So many of us do something outside of our academics that brings us joy, that brings us excitement. And if you understand why you're joyful at it, you can understand the pattern that's embedded in it, and then you can do it in your academics, in that place that you might find struggle, because chemistry is boring, accounting is boring. But boy, if I put it in this pattern, I can be successful at it. So that was my learning style. That was my learning journey. So whenever I can, I try to encourage people to be mindful about how you learn. Be thoughtful about it. And realize that, your roommate who has a different learning style, that's his or her learning style. That might not be yours. So your roommate could, get up early and take the exam and, get an A on it. You have to study a little bit more. And I was fine with that, with realizing that I was different. But we often compare ourselves to the other people around us, and we feel bad about ourselves, not knowing that they had Chemistry 101 in high school. I didn't. So don't beat yourself up about that. Find a way to be successful in your space, in the thing that you enjoy. And what I've enjoyed most is that I can apply that to anything in life. Like anywhere I go, whether it's work or education or building relationships, if I follow a pattern that works for me, I can find joy in it. And more importantly, I can find success.
One of the things that you mentioned that I love, it was a bit beginning more of like that spiel, but you said like I took chemistry, accounting, like they were challenging, but you still did them anyway. And I remember reading this book by Dr. Carol Dweck. It's called Mindset. I'm not sure, but it talks about like the growth mindset, and I immediately like picked up on like what you said. I'm like, oh, Ainsley's got a growth mindset. Like you have, just you see like a challenge and you chase after that. And I think that's something so interesting because it almost seems counterintuitive. A lot of students, myself included, I was on the forum searching up GPA boosters, easy courses to take, because getting into the comp side, you just need a really, really high average. And I wanted to like weigh my odds, right? How do I make it easier for myself? How do I just get by with an easy GPA boost grade? But I think what I should have been doing that I've done this semester is taking harder courses, like courses that scare me, that are challenging, that I'm like, wait, I'm not sure if I can do this. Because if you're able to push yourself through that, if you're able to learn the patterns, I mean, like I've had to adapt my schedule, my routines, the way that I live my life for these courses because I understand that they're difficult. And so that means I can't leave it till the last day anymore. Because if I leave it till the last day, I'm getting a zero on that assignment, right? So now we have to plan a little bit ahead and things like that. So I think that's really cool that you mentioned that.
Let me add, the thing that we're doing as a university student, this is about preparing you for your future. So now is not the time to take it easy on yourself. now you have the most capacity that you'll have in your life, right? You're not full-time employed. You might have a job on the side, but you're not fully employed. You don't have a family and kids and a whole set of obligations that really distract from your ability to maximize your academic potential. Like, we don't know how good we can be until you stretch yourself, right? Like, take that class that you're saying, I'm going to have to put in some work, and force yourself into that new routine. Hey, for this class, I got to get up early. I got to read all the assignments. I have to meet with the instructor after class. I have to take the practice exams, and then I have to take the exam. And then after I get the exam, and I have to go back to the instructor and say, here are the things that I missed. Is this right? I got to meet with the tutor. But this is the time of your life to stretch yourself. And once your mind has been stretched, it doesn't snap back in place. It stays stretched because you've just expanded your horizons. And sometimes we learn from the things that give us challenges. All right, that's not for me, right? So that lesson is just as important as the lesson of finding what you're gifted at.
Yeah.
So this is the time of your life to experiment with things. But look, I get it. There's pressure around. I need a 4.0. I need the highest grade possible because I want to go to med school. I want to go to graduate school. So, yeah, I understand that game as well, and I respect that part of the game. But it's also that window of time in your life for you to get yourself ready for med school.
Yeah.
By getting up early and grinding, or staying up late and grinding, whatever works for us. But learning your learning style is critically important right now.
Awesome. One of the things that you actually mentioned that I think for me, before coming to UBC, was I really made like that conscious decision of I want these next 4 years or 5 years or 6 years, I want to be a better man when I come out of it, right? I don't just want to go to school and get the grades. I genuinely want to feel like I've improved, I've grown. And I mean, sure, we can make an argument for it's getting harder because of the way the economy is. And so that means that now you need like a job, right? Like if you don't have a job or like you need a way to earn income. And so schools, unis are shifting more towards like, how do we ensure like you're employable? But I think really just taking that, again, like when other time in our lives are we just going to have 4 years to truly hone in, work on ourselves, right? That we'll be able to like, it's a safe environment to make mistakes, right? If you, not when you're working, because you might get fired. And even then, still try to make mistakes, have fun with them. But now it's a little bit low risk where, yeah, I can mess up. I can sleep in. Oh, crap, I missed the class. Okay, what's this topic? Do I genuinely enjoy this class? What do I want to do with my future? And so I think like going through that process, it's so encouraging almost looking back to first year me and how I lived. And I mean, by no means like was I like just sleeping in every single day or whatnot, going to parties. Like I didn't do any of those things, but I still think like seeing the improvement of, hey, before I can only study for like 1 hour or 2 hours, like really honing down, right? Or now all of a sudden, like if I need to lock in, I have the ability, I trust myself that I can get it done. If I have this assignment, this project in this game, oh my goodness, like last year, I literally shut down, like, wait, what do I do? Oh no, I'm confused. Like it's too much. And I was like, okay, just breathe. What needs to get prioritized? What's the earliest deadline? What can you shift till next week? Who understands and things like that. And so it's really just a process for you to grow up. But yeah, no, I love the fact that we're just talking about life in general. But yeah, another question that I wanted to ask is, why do you think DEI disparities persist in North America, right? Where again, like with new administration, policies are being rolled back, and you'd expect more companies to fight back, to really like make a standpoint on it. Since I genuinely believe that the DEI is important, like diversity of thought is important. Recently, I participated in a Deloitte case competition, DC3. So the Deloitte community case competition, and it was on premenopausal women, and we won first place. And after like the competition, one of the I think CEO or one of like the partners at Deloitte, we had lunch and everything, and he talked about like the reason we won was really like the diversity that we brought in. Like the way we thought, like just you said, like the creativity and ideas. You've never seen something like that, and so that was like a strong point. And so I'm just wondering, this would probably be more obvious in companies when you can see like, hey, this group is really performing well. We should bring in more like diverse thoughts. How do we make things inclusive? So I'm just curious about that area and why, like, you specifically think that's important.
Yeah. So I'll approach the question from this way.
Okay.
We are in what I would describe as a rhetorical war about words. Diversity, equity, inclusion, now those words are bad. However, these values have been part of Canadian and American culture for centuries.
Yeah.
In that, in the U.S., there is the Americans with Disabilities Act. The focus of that act was to make sure that people with disabilities had access to buildings, wheelchairs, ramps, elevators. And we built an environment to make sure that individuals who needed more space, more time, could fit into classrooms, residence halls, dining spaces.
Yeah.
Our city streets have curbs in the sidewalks, so a person with a wheelchair. Our crosswalks, some of them beep to let the individual who's blind know that they can cross the crosswalk. So we have, for decades, accommodated people with accessibility needs. We have efforts to increase the number of women in science. We have efforts to increase the number of students participating in different disciplines, whether it be math, science, STEM, you name it. And these efforts to increase access have been part of American and Canadian culture for a long time. So those efforts are now embedded in how universities operate.
Yep.
To call them out as a separate initiative draws attention to it. And actually, we've always been doing it. So this is just my philosophical position on this. We're not going to go backwards and uncut the curves that allow people with wheelchairs to get access to the curve. We're not going to go backwards and erase access to elevators. We're not going to go backwards and not give access to those crossing the street, because we know as a society these things are good and they make sense. I do feel strongly like that issues of diversity and equity and inclusion will simply become embedded in the work. It will be just as we think about accessibility for students with learning disabilities. Everyone doesn't have the same access to thinking and learning. Therefore, we offer classes on ground, online. We do video courses. We have textbooks. We put textbooks in Braille. We've created multiple ways for students to learn because we realize students have different learning styles. So awareness of learning styles is being aware of the diversity of how people think. So I would suggest that DEI is going through the rhetorical war, but the values of that work are embedded in what we do every day. You won't step out this door and walk 100 yards before you realize that we have carved the world so that everyone has access, or more people have access. And I don't think we're going to reverse that. I think we're going through a time as a nation where companies are reconsidering, how do we hire? When do we think about hiring? And they will continue to think about this work in different ways because it has economic value as well. That's where I think some of these companies will say, all right, we don't need a task force to do it. We don't need a separate office to do this work. But we still know that this is important, that people who need access should have access to our stores, have access to our products. So I have not lost hope that the world is fighting against 3 words. I still have hope that the principles of making sure that everyone can get into this space still exists. So that's where I keep my hope. is that access, safety, well-being, health, those aren't things that we will ever outlaw. Those are things that we will continue to find ways to adapt.
Yeah. I really like the way you put that. And I guess that stems, would you say that stems from your optimistic perspective? Okay. So I think that's a question I get a lot. How are you so optimistic? Or, you smile a lot. Where does this come from? And I guess I want to send it right back to you. How do you stay so optimistic in the face of times like this when generally you feel like, oh, I'm putting so much work and there's been so much work put into this, and now it just feels like generations of effort. You mentioned yeah, exactly, it's not being erased. We're still always going to prioritize access, health. How do we ensure the spaces are accessible for those who need it? But during a time like this, when it generally feels like, how do you stay optimistic?
So I'm speaking now personally
Okay.
in this. So I came from an immigrant family. My parents were the first to come to the U.S. They came from Trinidad and Tobago to the United States. They came to New York. And my dad worked in a shipping yard, and my mom was a private duty nurse, and they worked super long hours and raised 4 boys. The thing that I took from my parents the most, neither of them were college educated, but what they did value was hard work.
Mm.
And when things got tough,
Yep.
they worked harder. And I saw that as a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old boy watching my mom say, I'll take another shift, and going to work at 11 p.m. and coming home at 7 o'clock in the morning and making breakfast and kind of doing it all over the next day. So what I was seeing was hard work pays off. So I know any challenge that I face, hard work pays off. Just keep grinding. So I remain optimistic about any challenge we face because hard work pays off. So with my coming from an immigrant DNA, and I'm not suggesting this is unique to those who come from an immigrant mindset, I always see a challenge as what's the opportunity here?
Mm.
So while the world is getting flipped upside down in so many ways, I'm sitting here saying, ooh, wait a minute. We got a chance to do something here unique.
Yeah.
I think every time the game board gets reset, right now the game board gets reset and opportunities that didn't exist before suddenly appear. So how do we take advantage of the new world? And in every world, there is an opportunity.
Yeah.
In every game board, there's an opportunity.
Mm.
So some of it for me, I will root in my immigrant upbringing, and hard work pays off. Some of it is pure personality, right? And I know that some of my friends see these moments as the end of the world. The world is ending. It's doom and gloom. And I appreciate that, and I acknowledge that. As a counselor, I don't want to reject that as their reality. I often hear, the world is not as it is. The world is as we see it.
Mm.
So we see a world and we interpret the world based on our experience. So you and I could watch the exact same event happen and have a different interpretation of what just happened.
Yeah.
Because of our life experiences.
Mm.
It tells us what we just saw.
Yeah.
So you might have a different interpretation. My interpretation of this moment is that there is some doom and gloom, but in that doom and gloom, there is an opportunity. And I would like to be among the pioneers who are exploring the opportunity. The opportunity to advance the culture, not the opportunity to take advantage of people. And I think that's an important distinction that we should make. Some people will use the changing of the world and the world order as an opportunity to harm others and to take advantage of others. I think there's also plenty of space to do lots of good. And that's where I spend most of my time thinking the things, what's the opportunity to do good.
I love that. And so I love the two people, because I've heard similarly, two people will watch the same exact show from start to finish and they'll walk away with two different truths.
Mhm.
And it's not that either of them is a liar, it's just they've had different lived experiences that make them see the world a different way. And it's so interesting because, again, like, I think anyone can cultivate this sort of mindset. But I think you mentioned this immigrant mindset, right? Like this sense hard work will pay off. What is the opportunity? Because I like to see it as what's the opportunity for good? If there's a bad time, that just means as much bad as there is, that's just as much potential for good. And during the pandemic, I started a nonprofit called Wake Up Mental Health because of that very reason, right? Where I came back into my schools and I was really just excited to be back, coming from a smaller school in middle school to suddenly a huge school in high school. And there are all these amazing people. And I got excited and I said, wow, like I'm amongst people again, I'm really excited to thrive and be in this area. And then that pandemic hits, you're pulled away from social connections, right? And I genuinely struggled, but then I had to build brick by brick, this foundation of how do I want to bounce back from this. And so through reading, writing, doing exercise and art and all these different things, I was really able to like reconnect. And then coming back into schools and seeing how students just like me were still impacted, and it felt like we were in exactly the same place. I said, how can I help? Right? Like, what can I do? And then talking to my librarians, bouncing ideas off my friends, genuinely just wondering, what can we do to make a difference? And I decided, like, I want to run workshops, right? And I remember, like, my first time walking into a classroom with grade 5 and 6 year olds. And this was my first, I mean, normally I don't get nervous, but then, they're all looking at you. They're like, what are you doing here? I was trying to picture myself when I was in grade 5 and 6. I'm like, what was I even thinking about? And then just starting, see like how engaged and excited they were, and just how present they seemed, right? And I said, okay, I really, really want to continue with this. So I think that's awesome that there's always a potential for good, no matter how dire this situation is.
And I'll add some wording to that.
Sure.
Some people think about this as an opportunity to make money.
Mm.
It's really an opportunity to add value. So whether it generates revenue or not isn't the point. It's about, are we adding value?
Yeah.
What am I doing right now to add value? And sometimes the thing that you are struggling, that you need a remedy to, that you are producing a solution to, you'd be surprised how many more people need that exact same thing. So it's often, I don't have to worry about, ooh, what does she want? What does she want? Think about, what do I need right now? Create value, and people will get attracted to value.
Yeah.
People will come to say, ooh, that's a valuable opportunity to wake up mental health. Let's listen to that, because you create a solution for yourself that's also a solution for other people.
Mm.
So often the value that we create isn't about going outside yourself and creating something that you don't know works. It's create a solution for you.
Mm.
And you're creating value for yourself.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised at how many others are interested in that solution.
Awesome. Wow. Okay. This is like business idea 101 here.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess, like this question sort of relates, but it's just, there's an increasing discussion, I think, across North America. We're consistently talking about like the loneliness epidemic, right? And number one, what does that mean to you? And number two, like, how do you think that plays an effect on places like such as UBC, where housing, sure, like how do people talk to each other in housing? How does that work? How do we as an institution work towards ensuring that we can, maybe even break apart this problem, or is it as prevalent on campus? And yeah.
Yeah, when I first read this question and I was thinking about it, I thought, ooh, you might have stumped me here. But I've been thinking about this for a few years, and here's where I've come to this. The reason I struggle with it is because I don't meet a stranger. Like anybody that I sit down with for 5 minutes, we can have a conversation, and they're going to have a topic that I'm going to say, oh, yeah, I know about that, and we can talk about it. So I feel no hesitation talking to a stranger and building friendships, building relationships, or building, say, hey, thank you, good to meet you, and move on. I'll stand in the line at the grocery store and start up a conversation with the person in front of me, and we can talk about the weather or talk about the game tonight or whatever the case may be. But I realize that's not true for everyone. And over time, I've listened to students living in residence halls with 400, 500, 600 other people. And then when I meet with them, they're saying to me how lonely they are. And I remember scratching my head thinking, 400 people in your residence. You just walk downstairs and you're bumping into people. And then I realized the world of friendships has changed. Many students have hundreds, if not thousands, of friends, but many of those friends are on their phone.
Yeah.
They are Facebook friends, or social media friends, or friends on Twitter or X or some other social media platform. And I realized that's the friendship world that was different from my world. This was not available for us to build a friend base that was electronic. My friend base was me stepping out my front door and walking down the street and finding a couple guys who wanted to play kickball or football or basketball. That's how we built friends. It required interaction. None of it was sit on the phone or talk on your computer or handheld device. So now I'm sounding old school. I'm like my parents. When I was your age, so I'm feeling a bit of that. But I realized that has changed. So many students will have lots of friends, but those friends aren't physically available to them. So I have been thinking a lot lately about how we as a university orchestrate opportunities for students to engage. Some of it happens naturally through the clubs and organizations that UBC supports through the Alma Mater Society. The AMS has more than almost 300, I believe over 300 now, clubs and organizations for students to join on a variety of topics. So almost whatever you can imagine, there's a club that's available for that. And the AMS also makes it easy for students to start clubs of their own interests that may not already exist and bring people together in that way. We do that same type of gathering in many of our residence halls by floor meetings and bringing people together. We have created in our residence halls an all-you-can-eat dining plan. In part, the all-you-can-eat dining plan is a more efficient way for students to enjoy their meals without worrying about having to go back and pay extra for every single item. Now I pay one price and I eat as much as I'd like. That also encourages students to stay in the dining hall longer. And after a while, you start to meet people in that dining hall. After a while, you encourage people, hey, come on down, let's go at this time, and we can all eat a little bit longer. So some of the activities that the university has been creating seems to serve one purpose, but it serves multiple purposes. Our athletics and recreation is about engagement. Our residence hall experience is about student engagement.
Yep.
The accessibility that we've made to our mental health efforts is about engagement. The clubs and organizations offered by the AMS, it's about engagement. So the first year is typically hard, right, to start building these new friendships because you don't know where to go and who to trust yet. So jumpstart, imagine it, all of those things you put into a small group, and that small group has an advisor that walks around with you as part of the Jumpstart Imagine It experience. And then you go to this incredible event, large event where these people, so that's part of building our culture, slowly but surely. The next step for us as a university is to think more intentionally about what we call the first year experience. Right now, we have this really exciting beginning of the year, Jumpstart Imagine It. It's exciting, it's engaging, and then we say, now go to class. We need to think about the entire year.
Yeah.
Because at different points during the year, students have different experiences, and they need a chance to reconnect to something. And if they can reconnect to that Jumpstart group or the Imagine It group, that's the thing they need. So some groups stay together informally. Some groups need some institutional support to reconnect.
Yeah.
How do we help facilitate those reconnections throughout the year? So being more thoughtful about a first year experience will help us get students over the edge and think more carefully about their engagement. But there are a number of activities that the university has been very intentional about in thinking about student engagement in the first year, because we realize there is a loneliness epidemic that's silent, and that we can play a bigger role in engaging. And we know it's not through electronic devices. It has to be this.
Yeah,
What
no,
we're doing.
100%. I love the thing you mentioned about the dining hall, because that I feel like I spent too many hours in there, and for the same reasons you said, you know, you tap the card, hey, let's go again. Oh yeah, you know, I don't have to tap the card. Hey, let's go. You tap the card again.
Oh, you got that ice cream? I didn't get that.
Yeah,
Okay,
you know, like,
I think that's part of the energy that we wanted to create.
Yeah.
By
And so no, that's definitely awesome, and I love it was a thing you mentioned just about like back in your day, and you'd go in like person. That's how you meet people, and I remember so interesting. So when I went to Boston for the summer, and I was on the MIT campus, and I remember I was just walking around because I just wanted to explore the city and so on. I remember like landing in Boston. And I said, "What on earth am I doing?" Like I feel like UBC because I've been here twice for Destination UBC, but also Future Global Leaders, which I did over like the summer, and that's what like those experiences really got me thinking. Like you know, UBC is a place for me, right? I think it was Destination when we walked across like a group of students, and they were like playing the frisbee. It was in April, and I said, I was like, did they plan this like picture perfect moment for students where you're like, this is what it could be like, and so it felt like coming back, not like home, but like super excited for this experience. And then Boston as well, it was like exciting, but then landing and you're like, wait, I'm on my own. I've never been to the States before. Holy crap, all my friends are back home. I don't even have data yet. How am I gonna text anyone? And then just walking around like the campus after like I think during that week and running into these group of guys and they're playing soccer. And I just watched them for 5 minutes and I said, you know, go do something about it, right? Like you wanna play, go do something. And then I asked them, like, hey, can I join you guys? They're like, for sure. And then we brought in. And then after that, like, I think we grabbed food the next week. They're like, here's your number. And so it's just like those small moments where you have that opportunity. You see someone in your class that you're interested in talking to, right? Like, you have an idea. You're not sure whether or not you want to start it. You want to meet someone. You want to do, like, just do it. Like, Nike, just do it. But genuinely, I think we've talked about this, right? Where there's no better time where it's low risk than on campus where you're in undergrad. People expect you to make mistakes, right? But they're also here to uplift you and encourage you and provide resources and supports along the way to ensure that your experience will be a little bit easier. And so I think it's been a while since I played soccer, so I got a little bit embarrassed, but just that joy of playing again, of being around people, and it definitely made the experience of doing research in like MIT, right, where you're not used to research again. Like this was my first opportunity doing something like that, and you're worried about like, oh wait, what if I get it wrong or so on. But now you have like a group of people who play soccer every Thursday, so you're a little bit more excited to go to work. But
yeah, in general, people are paralyzed by rejection, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what you do is you watch the group playing soccer, and you think, if I ask, what if they reject me? Now I have to walk away from this field and feel really embarrassed, right? So that imagination stops you from even taking the risk.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have success doing it once, and then you realize, okay, this is okay. I can do this, and there's no harm. So that's the hurdle to get over. Not being paralyzed by the thought of being rejected. And it's the hardest thing to sell to first year students. Like, don't worry about rejection, take the chance. What we like to do is, I'll use a term that my Career Center team uses, is to make it structurally unavoidable for students to get involved. Like, create things in our institutional spaces that in order to get through this, I have to say, hey, will you join me in this project? right? So now I'm building the muscles of asking for help. So group projects in class are about building those muscles. Being a part of a Jumpstart Imagine Day group is about building that muscle. A all-you-can-eat dining plan is a part of building that muscle. Like we're making it easier for you to stay in a place, see a person, and then say, "Hey, can I sit down and have lunch?" So all of these things are, in many ways, intentional by the university to make it structurally unavoidable for engagement to happen.
No, I love that. And I think even with like the group projects, you get frustrated every once in a while, but even that frustration in of itself, where it teaches you, hey, you're not always going to enjoy the people you work with and so on, but how do you do it in a way where you're really happy with the end result, right? How do you communicate? How do you ensure, okay, someone else is having trouble with this? Oof, now I've got to like talk to other people within the group to figure out what we can do to like solve this problem. So I think that's awesome.
You mind if I ask you a question?
Oh yeah, for sure.
From this podcast and these conversations, what's your hope for the future?
All right, guys, I'm stumped. Okay, that's a good question, and I think the goal is just to invite people to like have a space where they feel like they're a part of something, right? And I mean, going forward, like I hope people will watch this and see and have it genuinely like mean something where like I strongly believe in you can hear the same thing 100 times, but it's that one time you hear it played in a different way that it finally clicks for you, right? Where you're like, wait, that makes so much sense. Oh, this is what everything else meant. And I think through like a lot of my conversations that I've had, it's always been those one things that have clicked for me. And so now I'm just hoping to cultivate sort of like a similar space where you get to hear stories, you get to hear journeys, you get to hear people like you who are doing amazing things who, are senior and people like that fear of rejection. Oh, maybe I shouldn't talk to Ainsley. I see him walking down. I'm a little bit nervous. And then I remember like that one time I saw you and I was with my friends. I was like, wait, that's it. I was like, Ainsley, and you're like, oh hi, how have you been? And just like a quick little 1 minute, like, hey, but just that you shouldn't be afraid to talk to the people at your university, right? You shouldn't be afraid to talk to people that you're interested in, and hopefully from this, as we bring in more and more people, hopefully we get stopped a lot more as you go on. Ainsley, how you been? But genuinely, right? And just giving people like this understanding of like we're a community, right? Like us not talking is not going to benefit anyone. Conversations need to happen. Some of them might be hard. Some of them you might have questions that you're not sure how to answer, but that's okay. Like, we don't all have the answers. And through trying to find those answers, being curious and being relentless in your pursuit of curiosity, then hopefully we'll be able to create a place where we'll look at the end of the day and we'll be really, really happy that we got it done or that we started. So, yeah.
And before we're done, I want to say thank you for one inviting me to this conversation.
For sure.
I also want to thank you for your leadership. I know these aren't easy things to get coordinated and organized behind the scenes, but it's been something important for me to see men of color take on leadership roles at the university, be more engaged, be more active in the life of the university by creating experiences, bringing each other together, bringing different groups together, having difficult conversations about things that matter to you, that matter to the university, that matter to the world. So I want to thank you for that leadership. I know that leadership is above and beyond the work that's required of you in your classes. So I want to honor that. I want to express my gratitude for that, to say thank you, because you're answering the call. You're answering the call of those who imagined you being here. So you're making an important contribution to the culture and to this university. And for that, I say thank you, brother.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed the food, and I hope you guys as well. If you got the food, you enjoyed it. Hopefully, I mean, we'll see whenever we can have you back for something similar. But no, I genuinely appreciate like your presence and your story, and I think what an amazing person to show the first year community when they're coming in and they're like, because leadership as well, like you say thank you to me, but I think the reason I've been able to do or even feel empowered to do something like this is because there's someone like you that I'm able to see in that leadership position that I say, hey, if Ainsley could do it, so can I, right? Like there's a space for me to do these things. There's an environment where I feel like if there's someone like that on leadership, then there has to be a place for me on campus. And so, well, thank you for being who you are and for your storytelling, sharing. And one more question. Just what's your favorite color and why?
I haven't been asked what's my favorite color in a while. I know a particular 5-year-old that asked this question from time to time. But just the other day, I saw somebody in a golf tournament that had a nice blue sweater and some trousers that were, solid blue. So I'm a navy blue guy. Like, I really like blue. Suit wise, I really respect a black or gray suit with a nice solid tie. I'm a solid tie guy, a solid black, a solid red, a solid orange. But I'm really, kind of white shirt, black tie, solid tie color. Blue suits I really admire, but black and gray also work for me.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you very much, Ainsley.
Thank you.
It was wonderful having you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.